What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. The UFC, I believe, is in actual trouble for the first time in a while. And the reason I'm saying this is because MVP, Most Valuable Promotions, doing another collab with Netflix, and they are throwing their first MMA card. Obviously, this is old news. We know they're doing this, but I wanted to, sit with this for a while, and they released the full card, I think about a week ago, a few days ago, whatever. And they are really coming after the UFC, I believe. Jake Paul, Nikisa Bedarian, they've done pretty good with this for their first MMA card. It's an all MMA event hosted by Netflix too. First ever probably MMA fights on Netflix. Main event Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. This is a fight that people wanted to see 10 years ago, but obviously didn't happen. Ronda Rousey, we know she's one of the biggest MMA fighters ever, right? In the 2010s, Gina Carano, a little earlier than Ronda Rousey, and became a big actor. They're the main event. I think they have a triple co-main event. Triple main event basically. But the main event, Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. Then they got Francis Ngannou versus Philip Lanes, or Lins, however you pronounce his name. And then they added Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry. Guys, these are three really good. First of all, these are not the highest level fights, but the thing about these, the name value. They're big fights. Obviously, Ronda Rousey returning to MMA. She was supposed to come back and fight in the UFC, but Netflix and MVP snatched her up. They snatched up all these guys, and then you have this undercard, really good looking. And I'm going to say Hunter Campbell and Dana White, really, they have to be worried about this. And the reason I'm saying this is because, first of all, we see Dana White in these interviews basically disregarding this card and not caring about it. But what I'm looking at here is you have Netflix, which is a cheat code for viewership, because more than half of the planet has Netflix. And it's going to be free on Netflix. And then you have these three main events that are huge names. If average, 40, 50-year-old dude scrolling through his Netflix, maybe his kid's scrolling through Netflix, and he sees, oh, Ronda Rousey, what the heck? Wasn't she, popular like 15 years ago? I remember when she was on the rise in the UFC. That's interesting. What is this? Oh, and then they got that Ngannou guy, blah, blah, blah. Nate Diaz, that's a dog. Guys, this is for the casual person who doesn't know anything about anything. This is for the hardcores. This is for anyone. It's free on Netflix. And even this undercard, I see Saladin Parnasse. I don't really know much about this guy. I've heard of him before. I'm not going to lie. He's from France, it looks like. I believe that flag is. I don't know Kenneth Cross. I feel like I've seen him before. Now they got Dos Santos versus Rubelas de Spain. Dos Santos, former UFC champion, heavyweight champion. Then Rubelas de Spain, we know what happened with him. Came to the UFC, then got cut because he sucked. But big dude, athletic guy. That's a really cool fight to have on there. Now, this is actually probably the most high level, most highly ranked, skilled fight on the card. Muhammad Mokaev versus Adriano Moraes. This is a really cool fight. Flyweight bout. Mokaev, he's undefeated. Mokaev is probably the number one contender. He's probably a top 3, top 4 flyweight in the world right now. As we know, his UFC career has not been good so far. Sorry, it has not gone well so far because he got cut by the UFC. They released him of his contract after some drama behind the scenes, which now the UFC is probably looking at that as, hey, they made a huge mistake. And Mokaev, he left the UFC, had a few other MMA fights, did some grappling matches. I believe he did karate combat a few times. Mokaev has been doing good for himself, and I know he's getting paid a lot for this fight. Adriano Moraes, OG in the game. Everyone knows him from his Demetrius Johnson fights. Very good, skilled flyweight. I think Mokaev is gonna work Moraes pretty well. But then the rest of this card, I'm not gonna act like a fake fan. and say I know these guys. I know Alex Pereira's sister. I don't know what Chris Avila is even. I think MVP just likes Chris Avila. He's probably a good guy behind the scenes, and he's associated with Nate Diaz. So I'm sure that's the only reason why Chris Avila is on this card. But whatever. These are good fights, man. And if you look at this, they're attacking all markets. France, Saladin Parnasse, he's not a huge guy. Like, I don't really know who he is. But France, Americans, got obviously quadruple threat Americans. Then Ngannou, the African crowd. And Ngannou is just huge anyways. Philippines, Brazil. Dos Santos, Brazil. Mariah's Brazil. Makayev, he's from the UK, but he's going to attract that Russian crowd, crowd from Middle East. He's going to attract those guys. Alina Pereira, she might get some people watching this. Oh, Alex Pereira's sister. And we know Pereira's probably going to be at the event, which I don't think anyone's going to be happy about. But the UFC needs to be worried because they are falling behind. They really are. Even with this new Paramount deal, people can watch it for free on Paramount. That's only in so few countries, In Canada, you still have to buy a pay-per-view, and a bunch of other places you still have to buy the pay-per-view. This is going to be free on Netflix everywhere. Anyone could watch it anywhere. This is going to be a huge, highly viewed event. Unless they don't promote it well, which I believe they should have they already did. No, they didn't even do a press conference. No, they did do a press conference. Holy, I'm losing my mind. But it wasn't that. It didn't pop off that much. But the UFC needs to be worried about this because the UFC is not putting out cards that should be expected. We saw the White House card, all expected fights, nothing crazy out of the ordinary special, after promising something special. Even though the White House card, way better than this. I hate how a bunch of people are like, oh, this is better than the White House card. You don't know what you're talking about, right? Now let's talk again. These are not the most highly skilled fights. Obviously, Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano, that's going to be an absolute stinker. There's no way that's going to be entertaining at all. So we're lucky that's at the end of the night. Ngannou versus Philip Lanes, we don't really know where Ngannou is in his MMA career. He's definitely, I would say, out of his prime, obviously. Probably will be an Ngannou knockout, but we never know. Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry, that's going to be a sick fight. That matchmaking is amazing. Parnasse versus Kenneth Cross, I'm sure that's going to be actually a good fight. Rubelos de Spain versus Dos Santos. That might be a stinker if you know. Makayev versus Mariah, that's going to be a good fight just based on their two really skilled guys. It's really fun to see two skilled guys skilled in both aspects of the game, grappling and striking. But it should be pretty good. And if MVP and Netflix, if they do good on this, this is not going to be a one-off event. And they're going to start snatching fighters from the UFC. They did it with Makayev, and I know the UFC didn't want Makayev. They threw Makayev away, even though they shouldn't have. Very dumb for doing that. They still have John Jones in the UFC. They still have a bunch of guys in the UFC who shouldn't be there, right? But I don't know where I was going. Yeah, they're going to start snatching fighters, especially if this goes well, and the viewership is good, and the fights are pretty entertaining, and they overall just hold an MMA event well, because MVP's never done MMA. They've only done boxing. Jake Paul, Nikisa, they only know boxing, so it's going to be interesting seeing them do MMA. I don't even know if is it going to be in a cage. I don't know if they're going to do it in a cage. I assume so, since it's an all MMA event, so I assume they're going to have a cage. I wonder how their production's going to be for it, because you got to film MMA differently. But that's besides the point. If this goes well, the UFC really should be worried, because, well, they're going to start snatching fighters whose contracts are ending. They're going to start getting big fighters. Now, we saw John Jones wants out of his UFC contract badly, and the UFC's, they're not going to release him. And if they do, you know damn well MVP would try to snatch it. I saw Jake Paul even say, he's like, yeah, we would 100% pay John Jones what he deserves. With John Jones asking for 30 mil, if John Jones somehow gets out of his UFC contract, MVP Netflix, they will 100% pay 30 million to John Jones to fight Francis Ngannou. That's our only hope to get it. It's going to be outside of the UFC, and it's going to have to be on a Netflix MVP card. The UFC needs to be highly worried because this is going to bring easy viewership. The same fight that's on this day, I believe, is Arnold Allen versus Costa, the new 145er coming up. It's a terrible Apex card other than that main event fight. No one's going to be watching that. Everyone's going to be watching this, you know? This does make me curious. And this to see Dana White so, like, just blowing this off, like, blah, 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 whatever. Does he not realize what just happened? Nate Diaz was supposed to... Dana White even said it. They gave Nate Diaz an offer he couldn't refuse. That was better than the UFC. They're giving better offers to the UFC. And Nate Diaz was supposed to fight on either the White House card or he was supposed to fight International Fight Week. But he chose this instead. Ronda Rousey, she was in talks with the UFC coming back. They snatched up Ronda Rousey. Obviously, Ngannou left. They parted ways with Ngannou. I know they were probably talking to Makayev about coming back. There's no way they weren't. And they snatched up Makayev too. And I'm sure this guy, Saladin Parnasse, I might have heard something that he even turned down a UFC contract. I'm not too sure about that. I could be lying and spreading fake news. But these are all people who should have been fighting in the UFC, but Netflix snatched them up. And they did a good job with this. For their first card, this is huge. I hope it goes well for them because we're going to start to see fights being put together. We're going to start to see people who are ending their contracts, maybe only have one fight left in the UFC. They do that fight and an MVP comes along and says, hey, you're a big name in the UFC. Let's see what you can do on Netflix with way more viewers and fighting someone else huge, and we'll pay you more and we'll do everything better. The UFC should definitely be worried. Guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I had no script for this video. If you listen to this point, I have no idea why you're here. I really don't know why you're here. I just said the same things over and over again. Guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Peace out.